The BBC wanted to make something to commemorate the 1 year anniversary of the Rana Plaza, and they invited me to do that, and I felt that I had something to bring to it potentially, given my documentary experience. I know that this incident had been covered extensively in the news, but I felt there was space for a piece that was more reflective a year on, that perhaps went into more detail about people's individual experiences and allowed us to hear from the people who've been affected by the tragedy themselves and in their own words, and in a film that felt tonally distinct from the other things that were kind of out there. So they approached me, and I felt compelled to do it because the story had moved me, and the more I kind of looked into it and researched it, the more I felt there was space for something new and something different in terms of the coverage of it. I'd never been to Bangladesh. I'd filmed in India quite extensively, and I've filmed in different kind of contexts, but I hadn't ever actually been to Bangladesh, and I'm not really sure what expectations I had, but as a country, it sort of it surprised me in many ways, and there's nothing like meeting people and speaking to them to deepen your understanding of something. I mean, that's why I make documentaries, but I was kind of struck by the strength of people and the compassion that I found there, and so many happy memories of being there, as well as kind of it being one of the most challenging things that I've ever done. I think that it's difficult to talk about your experiences when actually you're interviewing people who've been through the most horrific things. So I don't, it's hard to dwell on how you were feeling, frankly, at that point. But I was very moved by the experiences I had, and I was even more convinced that this story needed to be told and needed to be made available for people to watch and to see in the future. People probably thought they knew what happened in the Rana Plaza incident because they'd read articles about it in the press or whatever. And the thing that I sought to bring to this was to remind people that at its heart this is a story about human beings and individuals, people. At the end of that supply chain, amidst all those acronyms, that there are people. And if I could somehow use the film to allow people to feel connected to garment workers in Bangladesh in a deep way, and not in a kind of the fleeting way that you might do when you see a news report, but in a way that got under your skin a bit more, that was what I could hope to achieve. That would be the best thing I could achieve in making it, because frankly it's such a huge story with so much complexity that you can't get close to it. You can't get close to the scale of the tragedy and the loss, and the effects that it's had in the world, and the continued kind of ripple effects of a tragedy like that for a country. So my aim was quite simple, which was to tell people's stories. I think that's a big question to answer. I think that there's been a dialogue and a conversation that was started by the Rana Plaza that continues to happen, and there are no easy answers, and it's incredibly complex. So trying to distill, what to do, what next, that's the question that you're left with when something like this happens and you're affected by it on an emotional level. You think, what can I do, what next, or what should happen? And a lot of people said to me, when I was making it, well, just tell me which retailers not to shop at, tell me which shops not to go to, and I'll stop going there. And I always said to people, it's not about one particular brand. This is something much bigger and systemic, actually. It's something, you know, that touches upon issues of globalization and global capitalism. But one thing that struck me in the process of making the film that I think is very powerful is the power of conversation and the power of dialogue. And talking to garment workers, it sounds so simple, but actually, if the barriers can be broken down between what is known as labour, i.e. people in Bangladesh or other developing countries who are working in garment factories, have a direct dialogue with the international retailers and businesses who are sourcing in those places, then that to me would lead to a fundamental change in the way this system works, because there's no loss of accountability anymore. There's a direct conversation, and you can go and speak to garment workers about what their lives are like. You can open up that conversation, and I think that that's the way to change things. It's very easy to hide behind subcontractors and intermediary organizations, but there's no reason why brands can't send people to these places and meaningfully converse with the workers. And that doesn't mean having a once a year audit where someone comes and the factory owners present, you know, a selection of workers that they have trained to answer questions in a certain way, which is what happens. You know, it means genuinely being in contact with these people and having a relationship about where things are going and what their conditions are like. So for me, that seemed to be one tangible thing that could be a suggestion and could be a way to alter the status quo.